So I've been running my startup for a couple of months now, and I think this is a great time for me to start up a new series called the StartupSync. This series is basically going to be me giving you an update as to how my company is doing, how I'm doing, the things that I'm working on, the things I will be working on next, and also to kind of give you a general commentary on how I think the AI scene is doing and my thoughts on the software development side of things, just because that's what I focus on the most. These videos are going to be a lot more unedited and more vlogging style, just because I do find that I've created a couple of YouTube videos already, and I'm honestly quite terrible at them just because I'm fairly new to them, and I also do screw up a lot of my takes. So if you look at some of the footages that I've taken, there are several hundreds for the two videos that I've taken, and it's honestly just a lot of work going through a lot of different takes. So these series are going to be a lot more kind of flowy, I guess, and hopefully that kind of works out. But yeah, just to get started, to give you the first update on Overseed AI, which is the startup that I'm working on. I think it makes sense to start at the beginning, especially if you're interested in spinning up your own company or partnering with somebody else to create a new startup. I think it'd be kind of interesting to kind of talk about some of the challenges that I faced going through the new startup phase, and that would be like the process of founding the company itself. I found very challenging. There's a lot of legal hurdles. There's a lot of accounting stuff that you end up having to take over to learn and to manage. Even finding a good lawyer to work with was a lot of work, and there's just a lot of overhead to starting a new company, and I would probably ballpark that to roughly about 5,000 Canadian dollars. I think that's roughly how much it cost me to get started. It's generally going to be a little bit cheaper if you're going about it solo, and that might probably be a little bit confusing for the listeners here, just because I said I'm a solopreneur, but for context, Overseed AI, we actually have two founders. It's myself, Hal, and Dan, who is my business partner. So our company is actually set up with two founders in mind, but because I'm the only person who's fully operational, I am overseeing the day-to-day operations of our company. But yeah, so when you have two founders, it's actually a little bit more paperwork, and the lawyers charge a little bit extra for that. And there's also other things like business license that I need to get for my city, and the lawyer fees kind of encapsulates a lot of these kind of fees together. And when you get the full package, it does come out to be about several $1,000s. And there's also other stuff like purchasing your domain, email hosting. If you're purchasing GitHub subscriptions or AI subscriptions or what have you, a lot of these things kind of add up, and they also, to add to that, there's QuickBooks Online. That's also it's not the cheapest thing in the world. It's not the most expensive software out there, but again, a lot of these things kind of add up, and they add to your startup burn. So yeah, I found that it was a lot more expensive than I had thought to get off the ground. But here we are. It's just, I think if you are, like I said, thinking about founding a new company with a partner, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than if you were to start it by yourself. But yeah, so after founding the company, the next kind of big thing was setting up the structure for the company in terms of software. Like I mentioned, I spent probably the first month just setting stuff up, and that took a lot more time than I had hoped for. So I think the first thing, obviously, you gotta have email, you gotta have a domain, you gotta have a starting website, and after that, the main thing for me was project management, because obviously I'm a software engineer. I need to have some sort of platform to keep my thoughts together And I actually tried out linear project management for the first time, and I found the software quite good. It's very intuitive, it's simple, it's very fast. It kind of checks off a lot of the things I'm looking for in a project management software. Um, Unfortunately, I ended up walking away from it just because I found this integration with AI a little bit lacking. I'm pretty sure they're working on some new integrations with that, but at the time I was looking at it, I found it a little bit lacking. Um, I'm also interested in time tracking my project management tickets because in the Canadian government, they have a credit called the Scientific Research and Experimental Development credit program, where it funds startups or smaller companies that are working on high volatile environments and situations, kind of like a tech startup. So for them, it's really good for you to track your time for each issue that you worked on. And Linear, very surprisingly, doesn't support that. So that's why I ditched the Linear, and right now I'm using Notion. And I have a video on Notion project management coming up in the next couple of days, so feel free to check that out when it drops. But Notion is something that I've been using for several years now, and I love the software. I initially thought their project management was quite weak several years ago, but over the years I've kept my eyes on them, and obviously I still use them. But they have grown a lot in the project management department, and so they support a lot more features. Stuff like if your company does agile development, they now support sprints, which is, I think, really good. Their databases now have numbered items, which is really important if you are working on tickets, because they help you identify your tickets to a single item. And their GitHub integration has improved a lot. So now I have this really nice workflow where I start my tickets on Notion, and as I create new branches and new pull requests in GitHub, that automatically updates my Notion database. And I think that might be another video for me to make further down the road if you guys are interested in some of the workflow stuff that I have. Oh, sorry, one second, my iPad's turning off. So yeah, that's project management. My current Notion flow is quite good, and I'm quite happy with that. And I should probably talk about some of the projects that I'm working on. Yeah, so like I said, there was just a lot of work getting off the ground with a new company that I didn't get to program all that much in the first month. And in the second month, I did get around to creating some more projects. The main project that I created was something called VIWO CLI, and that's like a short acronym for virtual workspaces. VIWO is an interesting project because if you're a programmer, maybe not most, one of the popular agentic CLI tools that you have is called Claude Code. And Claude Code is really nice. It's agentic in the sense that you ask it for a task, or you give it a prompt, and it goes in and it's able to iterate on itself, to think, and also to write code and reflect on the code it's written. It's really great. But Claude Code is actually really not great for one-shot prompts where you basically feed it a single task, a single prompt, and it just goes ahead and does it like all the way through. And that's because it has a lot of permissions. It has a lot of gatekeeping things, and that's mostly for safety reasons, and that's a good thing. But yeah, so I created VIWO CLI because I wanted a way to run one-shot prompts with Claude Code, because Claude Code generally outputs really good stuff. But to one-shot prompt it in a safer environment with all the permissions enabled. And the way that we're doing that is through Docker. So it creates a Docker container where it runs, so that if it does go crazy or it gets hacked, at least that vulnerability or the attack surface is somewhat contained to the Docker container. And it also has, like I said, the permissions are all enabled. So whatever you give it, it's going to be able to go ahead and do everything. And it also has an integration with Git worktree. So if you're working on multiple of these prompts at the same time, you're able to spin all of them all up at the same time and not interfere with your current working branch. So you could have, and this is the workflow that I have. is I've got a running Cloud Code instance that I interact with, and that's like my my working zone. But if I have some smaller tickets that I want to get AI to work for me on the side, I will spin up a VIWO CLI instance and just get that running up on the side. And when it completes, I can just open that in my IDE and check out its work. And if I like it, I submit it for a pull request. Now that workflow has been really great for me. It's improved my personal development speed by probably like 2-3 times. It's been amazing. And I have open sources project, and it's now on the awesome Cloud Code repository. It also took a little bit of back and forth between me and the repository maintainer to get it approved, but it's now on there. We've gained our first few stars on the repository, and yeah, so that's VIWO CLI. I'm quite excited for it. There's more features that I do want to work on for quality of life stuff. But yeah, that's VIWO CLI. And the final kind of update I wanted to talk about in this vlog is social media. Now, as a programmer, I actually don't use social media all that much. I might use it for personal profiles. Like I have an Instagram account where I share cat photos and dog photos and my lifestyle videos and that kind of stuff. But as a professional, I haven't really used social media all that much. So I'm very new to making YouTube videos, as I said earlier. So in the last week and a half, I've been kind of fully immersed in the process of making YouTube videos, and I am starting to gain a whole new level of respect for content creators out there, because it's honestly really difficult work. Obviously, like everybody starts off crappy and not as good, and eventually over time you just gotta iterate, you just gotta put in the repetition and you'll get better at it. But honestly, the first couple of videos I made, it was so difficult. There was so many more things for me to learn. First, like how to film, how to capture audio, how to capture good audio, and that's a whole can of worms right there. But also like coming up with the content and actually filming it, and creating the thumbnail, and learning the best practices of YouTube or Twitter, X platform. Yeah, a lot of that stuff just took a lot of time. And also video editing on DaVinci Resolve. Like that software is amazing, but it's got so many so many features built in that I as a beginner, it's really hard to get started. So yeah, learning how to edit that, like a lot of these things kind of added together to be like a big week of just learning how to use social media. And I feel like I'm starting to just kind of get the hang of things. But yeah, that was pretty much all of last week, and I only could create like 2 videos, and that was the extent of it. But hopefully, as I put in more reps, I'll get better at it and find better ways to film, but find better workflows, and I'll eventually get better. And I've checked out other YouTube channels where, I think if you look at the first few, or probably first 10 videos that a lot of famous YouTube channels have out there, like they're not that great in general. I'm not saying mine's great either, and that's kind of the point. But yeah, like I think as you put in the reps, your videos do tend to get better and better. So that's hopefully where I do want to be. This is my 3rd video. I'll keep up the StartupSync series consistently, but it's not going to be like a weekly update. I think it's probably closer to like every other week, just because I think weekly updates, sometimes you don't have too much to talk about. But yeah, so probably every other week is going to be good, if not monthly. I'll also be creating tech tutorials and AI videos as I come up with the inspiration, and those will be more scheduled and more regular than the StartupSync series. To close things up, I think I do wanted to talk about the next project that I'm going to be working on. There's 2 kind of main ideas. Well, 3 if you include the ongoing work with VIWO CLI. The next kind of big one is something called Parkour, and it's a project that we ported over from our last company. It's a database subsetting tool, and what that means is basically a lot of companies, they face issues as they scale their database, or as their company, or as their customer base grows, and over time your database gets bigger and bigger, and that's just a universal law of how companies grow, right? But that growth comes with the problem that as your database gets bigger, it's harder and harder for you to put a realistic production database in the hands of your developers. And you want your developers to have as close to production database as possible. It makes debugging a lot easier when you have realistic data to work with. And so Parkour, the database subsetting tool, is meant to help companies reduce the file size of your databases down to a more manageable size, while cutting off some of the extra fat that comes with your database. So you don't need to have access to all terabytes of data that your production database might have, but you do want some of the core stuff to make your applications run, and that's where Parkour comes into play. We do want to make a way to make that process of making your database smaller a lot easier with our software. So this project is a little bit tricky just because it has some very difficult features that we do want to add into it. And I'm planning on writing this in Golang, and I've never written Go in my life before, so this will be a fun experiment for me to learn a new language while I create this application. But I'm fairly confident that this is going to be a good project to work on, and if it does go well, it's going to be a very good piece of software that a lot of companies can use. So I'm quite excited for that. The other project that I want to work on is similar to VIWO, but VIWO is a command line interface tool. So its use is kind of narrow in the sense that if you want a one-shot prompt, it's really good for that. But I want to create a desktop application where you're able to kind of start with your prompt and really kind of dial in your prompt. It helps you formulate a really good prompt. It allows you to pull in images or videos if that's what you want, or links. Basically, just start with a prompt, start with an issue. Maybe it integrates with GitHub or your Notion issue trackers, whatever you have. So you have a really nice curated prompt, starting prompt, and then you're able to start your agentic coding session through this desktop application, and you can view the process and the progress of that in that application. Now, there is another application that kind of does this. It's called Conductor, and they're fairly new and they're gaining traction, and I've tried out their software. It's quite good. I would say the one complaint I have about their software is that they put a lot of emphasis around the Git work tree. So when you're starting up a new instance, or if you want to create a new agentic session, it automatically, like, the first thing you do is create a Git work tree, and I think that approach is not what I'm looking for. It's not ideal, just because I think the very first thing you should focus on is a good understanding of the issue that you're working on. And for you to get to that, you have to talk with the AI and kind of hash that out. And you don't really need a Git work tree to start doing that. So this project, I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but I do want to eventually work on it because this is something that I would personally use. But yeah, I don't have a name for it quite yet. But those are the three projects that I'll be working on in the future. And so yeah, please stay tuned to get the next StartupSync series update on these new projects that I'll be working on. And feel free to keep me accountable on my social media profiles. I have currently an X profile, like Twitter X profile. I have Blue Sky if you're into that. I have obviously this YouTube channel, so feel free to subscribe if you want to stay notified about some of on the new videos that I'll be producing. I also have a Twitch account. I am streaming most days at the end of my workday for a couple of hours. At the current time, that is. If you're interested, come by, ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, like that's a great time to catch me live if that's your thing. I also do plan to add some more social media profiles further down in the road, but that's for future work. Anyway, thanks for listening, and yeah, if you have any questions or thoughts, please drop them down in the comments down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.